You walk into a luxury boutique, hand over $20,000 for a watch that catches your eye, and the moment you step outside, you've just lost $6,000 to $8,000. Gone, just like that. Now imagine doing that same thing, but this time your watch actually grows in value. 5 years later, it's worth double what you paid. 10 years? Maybe triple. Here's the truth most watch dealers won't tell you. Not all luxury watches are created equal when it comes to investment. Some are financial disasters disguised as status symbols. Others, they're like owning a tiny piece of real estate on your wrist. If you're thinking about dropping serious money on a timepiece, or you're just curious about which watches actually hold their value, you need to stick around for this entire video. And hey, smash that like button right now and subscribe because we're about to save you from some very expensive mistakes. Drop a comment below too. Which luxury watch are you currently wearing or dreaming about? And what's holding you back from pulling the trigger? Let's rank the top 10 investment watches from absolute worst to absolute best. Before we dive into the rankings, let's talk about what actually makes a watch a good investment. Because it's not just about the price tag or the brand name on the dial. Think of watches like houses. Some neighborhoods appreciate like crazy. Others, you're lucky if you break even. The watch world works the same way. Here's what we're looking at today. Brand strength. Does the whole world know and want this name? Resale value versus retail. Are you buying at a premium only to sell at a loss? Rarity and waitlist pressure. Is everyone fighting to get one, or can anyone walk in and buy it? And finally, long-term trends. What do the last 5, 10, even 20 years tell us about where this watch is headed? We're not ranking these based on how pretty they are or how many complications they have. This is pure investment analysis. Some of these watches are absolutely stunning, but will destroy your bank account. Others might not be the flashiest pieces, but they'll protect your money better than most stocks. Here's something wild. Only about 2 watches on this list are truly safe investments. The rest? They range from you might get lucky to you're basically burning cash. So, which luxury watch are you currently eyeing? Drop it in the comments. I want to know if you're about to make a smart move or a costly mistake. Now, let's start at the bottom with the worst offenders. Coming in at number 10, we have what I call the celebrity collab trap. Those limited edition steel sports watches that drop with massive hype, huge markups, and then crickets on the resale market. Picture this. A mid-tier luxury brand announces they're partnering with a famous athlete or musician. The marketing is everywhere. Pre-orders sell out in minutes. People are paying 20, 30, sometimes 40% above retail just to get their hands on one. It feels exclusive. It feels like you're part of something special. Fast forward 18 months. That same watch? It's selling for 50 to 60% of what you paid. Maybe less. Why does this happen? Simple. No scarcity, no collector demand. These brands flood the market with thousands of pieces, call it limited, and move on to the next collaboration. There's no waitlist pressure keeping prices up. There's no decades-long track record of appreciation. You're not buying a Rolex Daytona or a Patek Nautilus. You're buying a fashion statement that'll be forgotten by next year's news cycle. Here's the brutal truth. Most people buying these watches don't even know they're making a bad investment. They're caught up in the moment, the Instagram posts, the idea of owning something rare. But rarity means nothing if nobody wants to buy it from you later. If you're thinking about dropping 15 to 25 grand on one of these celebrity collabs, do yourself a favor. Buy a watch from a proven brand instead, or honestly, just invest that money in an index fund. Your future self will thank you. So before we move on, quick question. Have you ever bought something just because of the hype, only to regret it later? Let me know in the comments. And if you're finding this helpful so far, hit that subscribe button. We've got 9 more watches to go, and trust me, it gets way more interesting. Number 9 is what I call the high jewelry mirage. These are watches from huge luxury brands. Think Cartier, Chopard, or even some of the haute joaillerie pieces from Patek or Audemars Piguet. Loaded with diamonds, sapphires, and intricate metalwork. They retail for anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000. And look, they're gorgeous. absolutely stunning. You'll turn heads everywhere you go. But here's the problem: terrible resale value and almost no secondary market. Why? Because you're not buying a watch, you're buying jewelry. And jewelry, unless it's iconic and historic, depreciates fast. When you walk into a boutique and buy a gem set watch, you're paying for the brand's retail markup, the cost of setting those stones, the design work, all of it. But when you try to sell, buyers aren't paying for any of that. They're paying for the raw materials and maybe a fraction of the brand value. Think of it like buying a brand new car and driving it off the lot. Instant depreciation. Except with these watches, the drop is even steeper. Sometimes you're looking at losing 40, 50, even 60% of your purchase price the moment you decide to sell. Now, does that mean these watches are bad? No. If you love the piece, if it brings you joy, if you're buying it to wear and cherish, go for it. But if you're thinking about it as an investment, walk away. There are far better places to park your money. And here's a little insider secret: most serious watch collectors won't even touch these pieces. They're looking for mechanical excellence, heritage, and resale potential. A diamond-encrusted bezel doesn't check any of those boxes. Which brings me to a question for you. Would you rather own a watch that looks incredible but loses value, or one that's more understated but actually grows your wealth? Drop your answer below. At number 8, we've got what I call the ultra-complicated heirloom. Those insanely intricate watches from Patek Philippe A. Lang and Sona or Vacheron Constantin that cost $100,000 and up, featuring perpetual calendars, minute repeaters, tourbillons, you name it. Now, here's where this gets tricky. These watches can appreciate over time, sometimes significantly. But there's a massive catch: liquidity is terrible. What does that mean? It means when you're ready to sell, you could be waiting months, even years, to find the right buyer. These aren't watches you can flip quickly on Chrono24 or Bob's Watches. You're dealing with auction houses, private collectors, and a very small pool of people who can even afford to consider buying one. Think of it like owning a Picasso. Sure, it might be worth millions, but you can't just walk into a gallery and cash out tomorrow. You need the right buyer, the right moment, the right auction, and even then, you might not get the price you're hoping for. Here's the other issue: maintenance. These ultra-complicated pieces require servicing every few years, and that service can cost $5, $10, even $15,000 each time. If you're holding this watch as an investment, those costs eat into your returns. So, who should buy these? Honestly, people who are thinking in terms of decades, not years. People who want to pass something down to their kids or grandkids. If you need to liquidate your asset within 5 to 10 years, this is not the move. But let me be clear, I'm not saying these are bad watches. They're masterpieces of horology. They're some of the finest mechanical objects ever created. But as short to medium-term investments, they're tough. The appreciation is slow, the liquidity is painful, and the holding costs are high. Number 7 is the indie hype roller coaster. And if you've been following the watch world over the past few years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These are watches from independent brands. Think F.P. Journe, M.B., and F. Rexhep Rexhepi, Kari Voutilainen, that suddenly explode in popularity. One day, they're selling at retail for $20,000. 6 months later, they're going for $60,000 on the secondary market. A year after that, back down to $25,000. It's wild, it's volatile, and it's incredibly risky. Here's what happens. A few influential collectors or Instagram watch accounts start hyping up a particular piece. Maybe it wins an award at a big watch fair. Maybe a celebrity is spotted wearing one. Demand surges, waitlist form, prices skyrocket. But here's the thing about hype: it doesn't last. Eventually, the market cools down. People move on to the next hot brand. And if you bought at the peak, you're stuck holding a watch that's worth a fraction of what you paid. Now, does this mean independent watchmakers are bad investments? Not necessarily. If you catch the right brand early, before the hype cycle starts, you can make serious money. Some collectors have doubled or tripled their investments by getting in early on brands like F.P. Journe or De Bethune. But that's the key word: early. If you're buying after the hype has already started, you're probably too late. You're the person buying Bitcoin at $60,000, not at $600. So here's my advice. If you love independent watchmaking, if you appreciate the artistry and the innovation, buy these watches because they speak to you, not because you think they'll make you rich. Treat any appreciation as a bonus, not a guarantee. And honestly, unless you're deeply plugged into the watch collector community, unless you're reading forums every day and following every release, you're probably not going to time this market correctly. It's just too niche, too fast moving, too unpredictable. At number 6, things start to get more interesting. This is where we find the solid secondary option. Steel sports watches from respected brands like Omega, Jaeger-LeCoultre, or Tudor. These watches won't make you rich. Let's be clear about that up front. But they also won't destroy your portfolio the way numbers 10 through 7 might. Here's the typical story. You buy an Omega Seamaster or a Tudor Black Bay at retail for $5,000 to $8,000. You wear it for a few years. When you go to sell, you're probably looking at a 20 to 30% loss. Not great, but not catastrophic either. The reason these watches rank higher is simple. They have real brand recognition, solid build quality, and an actual secondary market. People know these names. When you list one for sale, you'll get offers. It might not be the price you want, but you won't be stuck with an unsellable piece. Think of these as the Toyota Camry of luxury watches. They're reliable. They hold their value better than most. They're not exciting, but they're not disasters either. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Certain discontinued models from these brands can appreciate. A vintage Omega Speedmaster, for example, or a Tudor Submariner from the 1970s. If you buy smart, if you focus on iconic references with historical significance, you can actually come out ahead. But that requires knowledge. You need to know which references are desirable, what condition issues to watch out for, and what a fair market price actually looks like. Most casual buyers don't have that expertise, which means they're more likely to overpay and lose money. So if you're considering one of these watches, here's my suggestion. Buy it because you want to wear it, not because you're banking on appreciation. Enjoy it. Live with it. And if it holds 70 to 80% of its value when you sell, consider that a win. Let me ask you this. Would you rather own a watch that loses 30% but you absolutely love wearing, or one that breaks even but sits in a drawer? Comment below with your thoughts. Alright, we're halfway through the rankings, and this is where things get really good. The next 4 watches are where serious money is made and lost. These are the pieces that separate casual buyers from smart investors. But before we continue, quick reminder. If you're finding this valuable, if you're learning something that could save you thousands of dollars, do me a favor. Hit that like button and subscribe. It helps more people discover this content, and honestly, it keeps me motivated to keep making these deep dives. Also, I'm curious. Are you team vintage or team modern? Do you prefer the history and character of older watches or the reliability and technology of new releases? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Alright, let's keep going. Number 5 is what I call entry-level prestige. Watches like the Rolex Oyster Perpetual or a mid-range Audemars Piguet Royal Oak in stainless steel. Now, these are still excellent watches, make no mistake, but they're not the investment heavyweights that the top 4 will be. Here's the deal. When you buy a Rolex Oyster Perpetual for $6,000 or $7,000, you're getting a watch that will probably hold its value pretty well. In some cases, especially if you get a popular color or limited dial variation, you might even sell it for slightly above retail a few years down the line. But you're not looking at massive gains. You're not doubling your money. This isn't a Submariner or a Daytona. It's a solid, well-made watch that sits just outside the icon category. The same goes for certain Royal Oak references. If you're buying the mid-tier models without the serious waitlist pressure, you're in a similar boat. Good value retention, strong brand, but not explosive growth. Why rank these at number 5? Because they're safe, but they're not exciting from an investment standpoint. They won't lose you significant money, but they probably won't make you any either. Think of them as a savings account with a slightly better interest rate. Your money is protected, but you're not getting rich. Now, who should buy these? People who want to own a piece from a legendary brand without the stress of chasing after the most hyped models. People who value wearability and everyday reliability over pure investment returns. And here's something important. These watches do benefit from the halo effect of their more expensive siblings. When people see a Rolex or an AP on your wrist, they don't know if you paid $6,000 or $60,000. The brand prestige is still there. So if you're considering one of these, go for it. Just don't expect it to fund your retirement. At number 4, we're entering serious investment territory with the vintage value play. Iconic vintage steel sports watches, especially Rolex Submariners and GMT Masters from the 1980s and 1990s. This is where things get really interesting because the data over the last 10 to 20 years is undeniable. These watches have consistently appreciated. Let's talk numbers. A Rolex Submariner reference 16610 from the 1990s used to sell for around $4,000 to $5,000 in the early 2010s. Today, that same watch, in good condition with box and papers, is selling for $15,000 to $20,000. That's a 300 to 400% return over about a decade. Now here's the catch. You need to know what you're doing. The vintage market is filled with pitfalls. Frankenstein watches with mismatched parts, overpolished cases that have lost their original shape, fake papers, service dials that aren't original. If you don't have expertise, you can easily overpay for a watch that's worth half what the seller is asking. But if you buy smart, if you find a clean example, verify its authenticity, pay a fair price, and hold it for the long term, vintage Rolex sports watches are genuinely strong investments. Why do these appreciate? A few reasons. One, there's massive collector demand. Vintage Rolex is one of the most studied, most documented, most discussed categories in the entire watch world. 2, these watches have proven themselves over decades. They're not trends, they're established classics. 3, supply is fixed. They're not making more 16,610s. Every year, some get damaged, some get lost, and the available pool shrinks. Here's my take. If you're willing to do the homework, if you're patient enough to find the right piece at the right price, vintage Rolex is one of the best watch investments you can make. But, and this is important, don't rush in. Spend time on forums, talk to reputable dealers, learn what to look for, because one bad purchase can wipe out years of potential gains. Number 3 is where we hit the modern icon category. Watches like the Rolex Submariner 124060, the GMT Master 2 Pepsi in steel, and the Daytona Panda reference 116500LN. These are the watches that everyone wants, nobody can get, and that sell for 20 to 50% above retail on the secondary market the moment they become available. Let's break down why these rank so high. First, liquidity. You can sell a steel Rolex Daytona in 24 hours, probably less. There are dozens of buyers ready to pay top dollar at any given moment. Compare that to number 8 on our list, where you might wait a year to find a buyer. Second, controlled supply. Rolex is a master at managing scarcity. They produce enough watches to maintain their global presence, but not so many that demand ever drops. The wait lists at authorized dealers can stretch years. And if you're not a VIP customer with a purchase history, good luck. Third, brand strength. Rolex is the most recognized luxury watch brand on the planet. When someone sees a Submariner or a Daytona, they know what it is and what it represents. That universal recognition creates stable, consistent demand. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These watches are excellent investments, but they're not risk-free. Over the past couple of years, we've seen some softening in the market. Watches that were selling for double retail in 2022 are now only 30 to 40% above. That's still great, but it shows that even these icons can fluctuate. My advice? If you can get one of these at retail from an authorized dealer, buy it. No question. If you're paying secondary market prices, you're still probably okay over the long term, but your margins are thinner. And here's something most people don't talk about: the emotional value of ownership. These are watches you can actually wear and enjoy without worrying about depreciation. You're not babying a fragile investment. You're wearing something built to last, something that looks incredible, and something that's holding or growing in value while you do. That's powerful. That's the dream scenario for any watch enthusiast. So here's my question for you. If you could only own one Rolex for the rest of your life, which model would it be and why? Drop your answer in the comments. At number 2, we're talking about the Patek Power Move, specifically modern steel sports models like the Aquanaut 5167 and related references. Now, if you know anything about the watch world, you know that Patek Philippe is in a league of its own. This is the brand that kings, presidents, and billionaires collect. When you own a Patek, you're not just buying a watch, you're buying a piece of horological history. The Aquanaut, launched in the late 1990s, was Patek's answer to the Royal Oak and the Nautilus. It's sporty, it's modern, and it's become one of the most desirable steel sports watches in the world. Here's why it ranks at number 2. Patek Philippe has one of the best long-term appreciation records in the entire industry. We're talking about a brand that has consistently over decades produced watches that grow in value. Not all models, but the right ones absolutely do. The Aquanaut hits that sweet spot between wearable and investment grade. It's not as formal as a Calatrava, but it's more refined than a pure dive watch. You can wear it with a suit or with jeans, and because it's steel, it has that mass appeal that precious metal watches don't. Now, here's the reality. Getting one of these at retail is nearly impossible unless you have a serious purchase history with an authorized dealer. We're talking about waiting years, spending hundreds of thousands on other watches just to build a relationship. Most people end up buying on the secondary market, where prices can be double or even triple retail. Is it still worth it at those prices? That depends on your timeline. If you're holding for 10, 15, 20 years, history suggests yes. If you need to sell in 3 years, you're taking more risk. But here's what I love about Patek. The brand equity is unshakable. Economic downturns, market crashes, trends coming and going, Patek endures. It's been around since 1839, and it'll be around long after we're gone. That kind of stability is rare in any asset class, let alone luxury goods. So if you can afford to get into a Patek Aquanaut, if you're thinking long term, this is one of the smartest watch investments you can make. And now, for number 1, the absolute best investment watch you can buy, the Patek Philippe Nautilus, especially the now discontinued reference 5711. This is it, the king. The watch that auction houses, collectors, and investors all agree on. Let me give you some context. The Nautilus 5711 in stainless steel had a retail price of around $30,000. Sounds like a lot, right? When Patek announced it was being discontinued in 2021, the secondary market exploded. Watches were selling for $150,000, $200,000. Some special editions went for over $400,000. Even now, years later, after the market has cooled off, you're still looking at $80,000 to $120,000 for a clean example. That's a 3 times to 4 times return if you bought at retail. Even if you bought on the secondary market 5 years ago at $50,000, you're still up. Why is the Nautilus the undisputed champion? Let me break it down. Scarcity. Patek doesn't flood the market. Production numbers are low, wait lists were measured in years, sometimes decades. And now that the 5711 is discontinued, supply is fixed forever. Design icon. Designed by Gerald Genta in 1976, the Nautilus is one of the most recognizable watch designs ever created. It's in the same tier as the Royal Oak, the Submariner, and the Daytona. Brand prestige. Patek Philippe is the top of the mountain. When you say luxury watch, Patek is the first name that comes to mind for anyone who knows anything about horology. Proven track record. Decades of data show that Nautilus references appreciate. Not speculation, actual sales data, auction results, and market trends over 40 plus years. Cross-generational appeal. Young collectors want them. Older collectors want them. Everyone in between wants them. That broad demand base creates stability. Now, here's the hard truth. Most people will never own a Nautilus. They're too rare, too expensive, and too hard to find. If you do manage to get one, hold on to it. This is not a watch you flip for quick profit. This is a watch you keep, you pass down, and you watch grow in value over decades. And if you're lucky enough to have purchased one years ago, congratulations. You're sitting on one of the best investment decisions you could have made in the luxury goods space. So there you have it. The top 10 investment watches ranked from worst to best. Let's recap the key takeaway. Not all luxury watches are created equal. Some will drain your bank account, others will protect your wealth, and a select few will actually grow your net worth while sitting on your wrist. If you're thinking about buying a watch as an investment, here's my advice: do your homework. Don't get caught up in hype. Don't buy something just because a celebrity wore it or because it's trending on Instagram. Focus on brands with proven track records, models with controlled supply, and watches that have stood the test of time. And remember, the best investment is always the one you can afford to hold long term. If you need to sell in 6 months, you're speculating, not investing. Now, I want to hear from you. Which watch on this list surprised you the most? Are you Team Rolex, Team Patek, or are you betting on an independent brand that might blow up in the next few years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're wearing a luxury watch right now, let me know what it is and whether you bought it for investment or pure enjoyment. Before you go, make sure you've hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to see it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got more deep dives coming on watches, investments, and everything in between. And here's one final thought to leave you with. The best watch you can buy is the one that makes you excited to check the time. Whether it's worth $10,000 or $10, if it brings you joy, it's priceless. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.